For those who are not aware, today we are going to be talking about the New York School Bus Incentive Program calculator that NYSERDA, in partnership with Spectivate, has put together to help districts, contractors, dealers really get an understanding of how much money you'll be eligible for through the program, what your fleet caps are, as well as how you can take advantage of stacking. So we'll start by introducing the calculator. Sophie, if you could just confirm you can see my screen.
It is currently loading.
Okay, just give it 1 second.
Okay, I can see it.
All right. Awesome. So this is the calculator. It is living on Spectivate's website. So spectivate.com/New York School Bus Incentive. However, if you just Google Spectivate, NYSBIP, this will pop up. Additionally, the link to this calculator will be posted on the NYSBIP website in the additional resources section. That should be up later today. So just taking a brief look at or going through a high level of what the calculator is able to do. If we scroll down, you'll see here we have 5 different tabs within the calculator. The first 4 are calculators themselves, where you'll need to put inputs as well as calculate based on those inputs, and then you'll get results. We also then have our summary tab, which is going to summarize all of the previous tabs. So this single bus voucher, the cap, charging voucher, and stacking, that will all get summarized on this page, which you will then be able to print out a report. And then finally, we have our resources page, which I'll click into really quickly here. It gives, some definitions that might be helpful when navigating through the page, program links to not only the NYSBIP program, but other programs that are referenced within this tool. And then we also have a list of the eligible buses. So if you want to take a look at that, you're more than welcome to as well. So we'll start with the single bus voucher page. Again, each of the calculator pages are set up with inputs on the left side and your results on the right side. Whatever information that is calculated in the results page here will then be used in the stacking page and the summary page, so that information is going to get pulled directly. So we'll start by doing a simple example. So in this example, I'm just a regular school district. I do all of my busing myself. I own the buses. So this is probably the most simple example we'll go through. One other thing I did want to mention before starting is that I'm going to go through 3 different examples today. So we'll do a simple fleet example, a more complicated fleet example where a school district may have multiple contractors, and then finally we'll go through an example if a contractor was to come onto this page, how would they utilize the calculator. We will have a Q&A at the end for any, more technical questions or about how the tool actually works. We will not be doing other examples. So if you put in the Q&A box, I'm a priority district and blah, 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 trying to give your scenario for us to then demonstrate, we will not be doing that. That is the purpose of the tool. So we definitely want to empower you to be able to use the tool on your own, which is what, we're really doing today. So like I said, we'll get started with a very simple fleet example. This is generally the most common application we've seen in terms of bus type and so on. So we'll start with that. So starting on the single bus voucher page. So this page is going to give you what a school bus voucher would look like for one bus. So you're only going to be able to choose, either a new type A, new type C, new type D, which you can see down in this drop down. But if you have a mixed fleet, you will have to do, the different buses or different bus types on their own. So we'll start with a new type C. The other thing I'll point out is each one of these inputs and results has a little question mark on the side, which gives you a little bit more information about what's being asked of, as well as some context where necessary. So we've selected a new Type C bus. Purchase price is $450,000. Pretty typical, which this price is pretty typical, including district add-ons. So anything the district is adding for like upfitting. This is a general idea, or a high-level price of what a Type C would cost. The next question, will an ESB operate in a priority district? In this example, we'll say yes. Are you going to scrap a bus that's 7 years or older? In this case, yes. We've seen a lot of scrappage so far, which has been awesome to see. Is the ESB V2G capable? Many of the buses on our list are, so we'll select that. And then finally, does the ESB include a wheelchair lift? For this example, we'll say no. Sorry, if in this example, we'll just say no. Again, this is the most common vehicle type with these add-ons that we've seen through the program so far. So once we hit calculate, you'll then see the results pop up on the right side, and it's going to break down your base incentive amount and then going to also give you how much of each bonus and add-on that you qualify for based on the answers to your question on the input side. So in this case, we've got the base amount, the priority district bonus, the scrappage bonus, and the V2G add-on bonus, no wheelchair add-on, and all of that together is going to give you your max NYSBIP school bus voucher amount, which is $257,250. Down below in the summary section, you'll then see that we take the purchase price that was entered on the input side, and we'll subtract that NYSBIP voucher amount to then see what your out-of-pocket costs will be for that bus. So again, really demonstrating to you how the voucher is going to work and how it can really lower those costs. Again, $192,000 is very close to a comparable diesel bus of a Type C variety. You can see here. So now we can move on to the next slide, or the next tab, which is the fleet-wide cap. So this is going to, for those who are familiar with the program, the caps are a little bit complicated. You can read a little bit more about them down below in the instructions and notes about how we what percentages we use and so on. So again, this is a simple fleet example. So again, this is a smaller school district. They own all their buses. So the total number of buses serving the districts for this example, we'll say 75. Again, does the bus operate in, or do the buses operate in a priority district? We're going to say yes. I will point out that this question, priority district and the FEP bonus, or if you have an FEP or an approved FEP plan, those questions will pop up multiple times throughout the tabs. The reason for that is each individual page is doing its own calculations. So we can't, use that information across the tabs. So it's important to make sure that you're consistent across each of the tabs. So in the previous tab, we were a priority district, so we'll say yes. And then in this example, there is no fleet electrification plan yet. Many districts this will be their scenario. And then does the district use multiple third-party operators? In this example, no, but we will come back to this question, does the district use multiple third-party operators? Because it's going to change this page a little bit. So once we've answered these questions, we'll then hit calculate. And then you'll see on the right-hand side in the results, we have the district cap for 10 vehicles, no FEP bonus. You see we have 0, and then we have the total buses here, which is 10. Now, if we had selected that FEP bonus, we could recalculate it, and then you'll see the FEP bonus pop up right here. So the total number of buses that the district could apply for is 14 with an FEP plan. But again, we'll stick with the example we were doing before. So no fleet electrification plan. So the district cap is 10 buses. Now remember, there's a district cap and then there are sub-district caps, which again, we'll get into those sub-district caps when we get into the example with multiple third parties. But for the simple example where the district owns everything, the district cap is the number that matters, which you can see here bolded. All right, next we'll move on to the charging voucher. So this works a little bit differently in terms of the bus ports voucher is going to represent how much you could get for one single bus. However, for the charging voucher, it's based on the number of electric buses that you're purchasing. So let's say in this example, they went out to a vote, or they're planning to do a vote for one bus, or yeah, we'll do one bus. And then will the charger serve a priority district? Again, we'll say yes. And again, in this example, do you have an approved FEP plan? We do not. So we'll then hit calculate. And then you'll see a pop up on the right-hand side. This is the NYSBIP charging voucher incentive per bus, which is the 35,000. The max number of ports that can be applied for here is 2, because again, if you have an odd number of buses, will allow you to install an extra port, so that we're not pigeonholing people into getting single port chargers. And then finally, the total NYSBIP charging incentive will show up down here. So let's say we did put 2 buses in here. When we calculate, you'll see that the charging voucher incentive stays at 35,000. The number of ports stays the same at 2, but then the total charging incentive goes up to 70,000 because there's 2 buses. So therefore this amount is getting counted for twice. Okay. So that's the charging voucher side. We'll now go into the stacking slide, which right now we can see that we can see the single bus stacking up here, and then we can also see the charging stacking down here. I'll show this a little bit later on, but this stacking and the summary pages, here's a good example. The summary page here, before you can proceed and produce a summary report, you must complete all the tabs. So you can see we completed the single bus voucher, the fleet-wide caps, and as well as the charging voucher, but we have not completed the single bus stacking or the charging stacking, so we cannot access the summary page yet. And that will come into play on the stacking page as well. You have to complete the single bus voucher as well as the charging voucher calculator tabs in order to have access to these stacking options. So we go back to the single bus voucher stacking, and you can see here it is pulling some information from the single bus voucher. So the purchase price, that's being pulled, as well as the electric school bus type, as well as the NYSBIP incentive, or that max NYSBIP incentive. So let's say in this example, they are an EPA awardee. We can say yes. So this district is going to take advantage of the EPA stacking. So they'll click yes. And then are they an EPA priority district? There are instances where, you know, a district could be a priority district within NYSBIP, but then they're not a priority district within the EPA's Clean School Bus program. That can happen. So let's say in this example, they're not an EPA priority district, so we'll leave that blank. And then the district's transportation aid ratio, we'll say it's 35%. Want to note here that we're entering numbers. We're not going to enter per, 0.35. That's not going to work. We'll need to put the full 35%. And then once we calculate it, on the results side, you'll see pop up this calculation. So we'll start with the purchase price of the electric school bus minus the EPA incentive, because that is how the stacking works, is we take the EPA incentive out. Recognizing that the EPA incentive does allow you to use their money for both charging and school bus. For us, in New York, we recommend that districts use the entire EPA incentive to cover the school bus, because there's a lot of money for the charging on the NYSBIP side. And that should make it a little bit easier for the district in terms of what documentation they need for both programs. That way you're not having to gather charging information that meets both requirements for both programs. So going back, we're going to subtract the EPA incentive amount. For everyone's information, these amounts are the newest round of the EPA Clean School Bus funding. So that's EPA round 4 numbers. So that'll go here. And then the updated incentive amount, because if you are stacking EPA with NYSERDA or with the NYSBIP program, you are then given the stacking voucher amount as opposed to the full NYSBIP amount, which you're seeing here. So this is adjusted because the EPA incentive is involved here. So because they are not an EPA priority district, they're eligible for $100,000 from NYSBIP. And then you can see that out-of-pocket cost now goes down to $180,000. And then if we go down below, we then calculate for you that transportation aid reimbursement. Now, this is only going to be the principal reimbursement. It is not going to include the interest payments. So even the value we're showing here, this net cost after transportation aid, this value will be even lower with the interest. We kept the interest out of this calculator because it changes so often. And we're really, again, the idea of this tool is really to give you a high level overview about how, one, what you can get through NYSBIP, and then two, how NYSBIP interacts with these other programs, including transportation aid. Okay, so we've completed the single bus stacking on this side, and then we'll go down below and we'll do the charging stacking. So with the charging stacking, you're going to start with your customer side costs. So that's going to be anything on the customer side minus the actual charger itself, and then, the installation of the charger. So if you look on the question mark, it gives you a little bit of a range. Obviously, this customer side cost is really going to be district dependent. However, we did give some, high level sort of general costs on a per ESB basis. So in this case, this district has 75 buses. So probably going to be somewhere in the, $2 to $3 million range in terms of customer side costs. So for this example, we'll just put 1.5 million here. Sorry, just let me make sure this is the correct number of zeros. And then the cost for the single charger, including installation costs. So for this example, again, we'll put 10,000. You can see here some high level numbers. A level 2 generally going to be around that $5,000 to $15,000 range. So we'll put 10. Level 3 definitely gets a little bit more expensive. Then you're going to choose, is the charger single or dual port? We'll do one or single port in this case. Is the depot located in a DAC? Yes, that's consistent with everything else that we've put on the page. We're going to select our utility provider. So we'll just pick, Central Hudson. And then again, you'll need to put in the district's transportation aid ratio, which is 35. In this example, again, you want these two to be consistent. Then we'll hit calculate. Calculate. And then you'll see these values pop up on the results side. So again, customer side cost, pulling directly from the inputs, charger costs, pulling directly from the inputs. Now, the inputs are this $10,000 cost plus however many chargers that you're getting. So remember on the charging voucher page, we had put 2 buses purchased. So we have up to 2 ports. And in this case, we selected a single port. So there's going to be 2 chargers with 1 port each. So that gives us the total charger cost at $20,000. That'll total up your infrastructure cost here. And then depending on your utility provider and whether or not you put the depots in a DAC, that will calculate whether or not you qualify for the Make Ready customer side incentives. So as of right now for the Make Ready pilot, joint utility providers will give up to 50% of customer side costs to the owner, so the district or the contractor, as long as the depot is in a DAC, or they recently updated the eligibility and they will now include districts that are within a 2-mile radius of a DAC. So if your depot is close to a DAC, you may still be eligible for this customer side incentive. However, for the purposes of this tool, which again is for real demonstrative purposes, we're just calculating the 50% cost. So we definitely call out here that each program has its own rules and eligibility. Obviously, this customer side cost, this 1.5 million, is just, a general idea. Other districts may have more concrete numbers, but others may not. So the tool is really, again, to give that high level overview. So again, going back to the results side, minus that make ready customer side incentive, and then minus the NYSBIP charging voucher incentive, we'll then change that out of pocket expense to $700,000 as opposed to the 1.5 million. And then when you include transportation aid, again, just on the principal, not the interest payments, you'll get another almost 300,000 from NYSERDA. And that's subtracted. So the net cost after the transportation aid is 430,500. Again, not including the interest payments. So this value could be even smaller. All right. So now we've tackled the single bus stacking. We've tackled the charging stacking. Everything is filled out. So now we can go back to that summary page. And again, now you'll see this report actually pops up. Going through the report, we'll have at the top the project. It's going to summarize the tabs here to give you the overall project costs. So again, number of ESBs, 2, that's what we put in. Number of chargers, again, that's what we put in, as well as the ports. And then you can see total out-of-pocket expense up here. The total transportation aid for the project, and the total net costs. So these totals are for the entire project, so including the electric school bus and the charging infrastructure. Those values are going to be up here. And then you have some more summary stats under electric school buses and charging infrastructure again. And I'll point out on the electric school bus side, again, I know we only did the single bus voucher, but here, in the project details, it is going to multiply based on the number of buses that you put in. So again, you'll get, your entire project. I will call out again that the calculator can only handle one vehicle type at a time. So in this case, the new type C. So if you have a mixed fleet, then you may need to go through the tool a couple of times to account for your type C versus your type A. So just want to call that out on the bus side. Then if we scroll down, you'll see the inputs and the results that you inputted on all of the previous tabs will show up here. Again, summarizing just everything you put in. Then once you hit the bottom, you can print this report. So we'll hit print report. You can put your name, organization, district, whatever other notes you'd like to place in there. And then we can create the report, which will then download a PDF file of everything that was in the tool. So you can see here, and it will have on here the date that you actually ran this report. And again, summarizing everything that you saw on the summary page in this report. All right. So that was a simple fleet example. We'll now go through and talk through a more complicated fleet example where the district has multiple fleet operators. So we'll start from the beginning. And in fact, I'm just going to refresh the page. You'll notice when I refresh the page, everything resets back to normal. And then if I click on the stacking side, you can see now the alert coming up that you need to fill out that single bus voucher and charging voucher. All right, so getting into the example, again, this is going to be an example where a district is getting buses and they have multiple contractors. So I think in this case, we could use New York City as a good example. So new type A, we'll stick with that. Say $300,000 for the cost of a new type A. All of New York City is considered a priority district, so we'll say yes. Are we scrapping? We'll say yes. Is the bus V2G capable? Let's say for the sake of the example, not V2G capable, and it does not include a wheelchair lift. We'll then hit calculate. You can see here that base incentive, the priority district bonus, scrappage bonus, and that max NYSBIP incentive is, $190,000. Which then puts the out-of-pocket expense at $110,000. Again, very comparable or close to comparable to a diesel bus. Then we'll go into the fleet-wide caps, and this is where things are going to get a little bit more complicated, right? Because they're going to have multiple operators. So let's say for the district, so for New York, there's for New York City, there's like 9,000 buses. For demonstrative purposes, we could even put, like 500. And if we don't even select anything here, it's still going to be capped. So put 9,000 in general for New York City. Again, for New York City specifically, don't worry too much about the total number. You could just put a larger number. For other districts, like let's say, Buffalo or Albany, where they may have 400 school buses, we can calculate that, and that district cap is going to be here. So anyways, going back to the New York City example, just put 9,000. Do the buses operate in a prior district? Yes. Does the district have a fleet electrification plan? Yes. I guess New York City is not even a great example, so we'll do Buffalo. Priority district, yes. Fleet electrification plan, yes. And then does the district use multiple third-party operators? If we click this button, you'll see we now have a whole table that drops down. And this is now going to give you the opportunity to calculate these sub-district caps. So for those who don't recall, our caps, as I said previously, we have the district cap, which is the end-all be-all cap that's per district. We then, if you have multiple operators or third-party operators, each of those operators is subject to a sub-district cap, meaning each provider is eligible for the greater of 6 or 6% if they're not a priority district, or the greater of 10 or 10% if they're not a priority district, or if they are a priority district, sorry. So each of those needs to be calculated. So now what we'll do is we'll put in this information for each of our third-party operators. So in this example, we have the school district. I'm just putting school district 1. Would probably be more useful if you put in your actual school district name. And then you can put in the different operators that you utilize. Then ask how many buses. We've got 50. Let's say the school district does 50. Third-party operator 1 has 200 buses that they use to service the school district, and third-party operator 2 uses 250 buses. So important to note, if you click here, the list of buses here should equal the total number of buses listed above. So that is key. 500, 50, 200, 250, that's going to equal that 500. And then in this example, the school district did do a fleet electrification plan, but maybe they don't know if the other operators did a fleet electrification plan yet, or they know they haven't. So we won't select that box. So now that we have everything filled out, we'll hit calculate, and you'll see at the top, the district cap is calculated at 50. And then down here, we have the sub-district cap for each operator down below. So it's 10, 20, and 25. Now you'll see at the bottom, alert, total of the sub-district caps exceeds the district cap limit, because again, that district cap is the end all be all of, total for the district. So this is 50, and then this is 55, which is more. So what does that mean? That means that the school district is responsible for determining the allocations between these all the operators, which we do capture when you apply through the fleet certification required document. But again, giving you high level of of your project here. So with the district cap at 50, we've got our sub-district caps here. And then you can also see here, the FEP bonus is calculated for this, for the school district because they selected the FEP box. And so now that district has a total of 24. So I'll just call out here that the sub-district caps, the district cap is the end all be all. So the sub districts or how they're allocated between each third party will be determined by the school district. However, the FEP bonuses, these do not go against your district cap. The FEP bonus buses are separate. You just are you are allowed to apply for 4 extra if you've completed that FEP plan. All right. Now going into the charging side. So again, this is a larger district. So maybe they're going to be purchasing more like 15 buses at this time. Will they serve a priority district? We'll say yes. Does the district have an approved fleet electrification plan? We'll say yes. And then we will calculate. And again, you'll see on this side, a single charging voucher, or I should say a per bus charging voucher is 65,000. The max number of ports is 16. Again, adding 1 additional for the odd number of buses. And then the total NYSBIP charging incentive we'll see down below. So that's this 65,000 times the 15 will get you this total charging incentive. Then we'll hit the stacking page. Again, a lot of these larger districts have been applying for EPA, which is great. But let's say in this example, they didn't apply for EPA. So they are not an EPA awardee and they're not EPA priority or non-priority. So then we'll just need to put in the district's ratio. Let's say it's a little bit higher, 45%. We can then calculate it and you'll see here, the ESB purchase price minus the EPA incentive, which there is none. And then the updated NYSBIP incentive is the 190, which again, that matches this max NYSBIP voucher amount because again, we're not stacking. And then that gets you your out-of-pocket expense. And then it includes the transportation aid reimbursement, which it ends up being the full out-of-pocket expense. And then that net cost is actually 0. So people might be a little bit confused about this. How can you get 100% transportation aid reimbursement when you do have a NYSBIP incentive in here? And the reason for that is SCD recently made a rule change that exempts the NYSBIP incentive, or I guess I should say it includes the NYSBIP incentive in the transportation aid calculation, meaning that this NYSBIP incentive will not be taken out of this $300,000 purchase price to calculate the transportation aid. Instead, it will be this full amount here. Now, if you had won an EPA award for, example or tangential example's sake, we'll say yes, EPA award, we'll calculate it. And then you'll see here, the ESB purchase price is 300,000. We have minus the EPA incentive and then minus the NYSBIP incentive, gets you at 85,000. And then you end up still having a net cost after. And that's because, again, the transportation aid reimbursement is actually going to be based on the $300,000 minus the EPA incentive. So that puts us at what, $185,000, and that's what that transportation aid reimbursement is going to be based on, the 185, not 300,000 minus the 115 minus the 100,000. So it's not going to be based on this 85,000, rather just based on 300,000 minus 115,000. So another benefit of taking advantage of the NYSBIP funds is you're definitely eligible for more transportation aid with NYSBIP. Okay, so again, going back to our actual example, take away the EPA award, calculate that here, we get this. Then we'll do the customer side costs. In this case, it's a much larger fleet, so probably more in the multiple millions of dollars to do the customer side costs. We'll say they're getting, a dual port Level 3 charger, those are generally much more expensive. In fact, maybe we'll put 50,000. I will say DCFC chargers or the level 3 chargers, the range of costs varies wide. So, you know, definitely do your due diligence while you're looking for your chargers. Is the depot in a DAC? Yes, again, this was a DAC district. The utility provider, I believe Western New York is probably either Central Hudson or National Grid. Let's say National Grid, and then we'll match the 45 transportation aid that we used above. We hit calculate. Then you'll get everything calculated on this side. So the total infrastructure costs, the total out-of-pocket expense minus that make-ready funding, minus the charger voucher, and then you get that transportation aid reimbursement. So that net cost, again, it goes from $5 million cost, or really $5.4 million cost, down to $620,000. So again, really demonstrating the benefits of taking advantage of all of these incentives. It is a lot of work, admittedly, to apply to all of these things, but I know the dealers are very helpful when it comes to putting in these applications and helping districts get the most money that they can. And it really does make a huge difference. So then we check out the summary page, let it load, and now we have the overall project cost right at the top here. And again, the total net cost coming down to that 620,000 because those buses were completely covered. Net cost after state aid, 0% or $0. All right. So now we'll move on to our final example, which will be from a contractor's perspective, where, you know, a contractor may not know if a district has multiple contractors. And again, we're not coming in from the perspective of a school district, rather we're coming in from the perspective of a contractor applying on behalf of a school district. So for this example, we'll go back to the type C, 450,000. Though generally contractors are able to negotiate prices a little bit more. Will the district operate in a priority district? Let's say for this example, no. Are we scrapping a bus? We'll say yes. Is it V2G capable? We'll say yes. Does the ESB include a wheelchair lift? For this example, we'll say yes. We'll hit calculate. Now we'll get all those values on the right-hand side once again. Then if we go to the fleet-wide caps, because the contractor does not know who the other contractors are, or if the district has any other contractors, the contractor may not know either if the district, you know, provides their own transportation. So in this example, it's just purely the contractor trying to figure out how much they can get for buses they're using for a specific district. So let's say the total number of buses serving this district is 100. Again, do the buses operate in a priority district? They do not. Does this contractor have an FEP plan? Let's say yes. And then does the district use multiple third-party operators? In this case, we don't know. They may not, but we don't really know. So we'll hit calculate. And the interpretation of this district cap is really going to be the sub-district cap for this contractor, because again, you're not putting in the total number of buses serving the district in its entirety, like in the previous examples. Rather, the total number of buses serving the district is just the amount of buses that that contractor is using for that district. So again, this district cap is 6 plus really the sub-district cap is 6, the FEP bonus is 4, and so this contractor can, in theory, apply for a total of 10 buses, obviously subject to the district signing off on the fleet certification form during the application. Then we'll move to the charging voucher. How many buses is this contractor purchasing? Let's go with 3 this time. No priority district, and yes, they do have an FEP plan, again, matching what we put in over here. We'll hit calculate, and then we get our values over here. Then if we go into the stacking page, See here, the ESB purchase price. Again, all this information pulling from that single bus voucher page. They're not an EPA awardee in this example, so we'll say we won't fill these in. And then district transportation aid ratio. For this, we're going to put 0 because a contractor does not get reimbursed for transportation aid or with transportation aid, right? So a contractor has 0% aid ratio. So when we calculate that, you're just going to see, again, these high level, the purchase price that we're pulling, the updated NYSBIP incentive, which is actually the same because there's no stacking, no transportation aid involved. So there, the net cost after transportation aid is the $221,500. Next, we'll go down to customer side costs again. For this example, maybe it's just a little bit less work, not a lot to do. We'll get that $100,000. Single charger costs, I don't know, $15,000. We'll do a dual port. Is the depot in a DAC? No, that's consistent with everything else we've put in. Let's say the utility provider in this case is LIPA, not one of the joint utilities. And again, 0 transportation aid ratio. We'll calculate that. Then you'll see customer side costs, charger costs as per usual, total infrastructure costs. We'll then see make ready customer side incentive is 0 because first of all, the depot is not in a DAC. And second of all, their utility provider is not part of the joint utilities. So only the joint utilities have this make ready funding. So again, that'll be $0. Taking away the charging incentive down here. And then we still have an out-of-pocket expense of $0. We'll click the summary page, and again, everything's summarized at the top here and with everything else below, and then you are more than welcome to go ahead and print the report. All right, so that is the end of the demonstration for the calculator. Sophie, I'll now take some questions before I briefly introduce 2 other resources that I wanted to share with you all. But we'll start with any questions that came in the chat.
Sure, absolutely. Currently, there's one question in the chat that I'm not able to answer. Is there a specific browser to use for this calculator? It seems to be not loading for somebody in Chrome. I know you're demonstrating it in Chrome at the moment, but
Yes.
if there is a browser that is recommended for usability of this?
That's a great question. I'm not sure if there's a recommended browser. Obviously, as Sophie just said, I am using it in Chrome, so it should work through Chrome. You may want to try deleting your cache or your cookies, some of the browsing data, because that may help refresh the page. But it should work in all browsers, so Firefox, Edge, whatever browser works for you. It should work. But as of right now, I don't think we have a preferred browser.
Okay, great. So the only question that's currently in the chat, I don't know if I want to give it a couple minutes before going into the rest of the resources.
What I'll do is I'll talk about the other resources and then I can come back and see if anyone else has put stuff in the chat after. Cool. So 2 other tools or resources I wanted to show you all. We had mentioned it in our email blast a week or so ago. One, we have now data from the NYSBIP program up on the New York State Open New York, the Open New York data site. So if you just even in Google type Open New York data, it will take you to the New York State page, and then you can search for the NYSBIP projects. This will also be available, a direct link to this page will be available on our website later today as well. But yeah, so you'll get onto this page, and then if you click the data, what you'll see is all of the current approved and closed out projects for the school bus, for NYSBIP, and specifically the school bus projects. Still working on getting the charging projects up, but for now we have the school bus projects available, so you can see all of this data. You'll be able to see school districts that have applied, how much they have been awarded versus how much has been paid out. You can see the different buses that are there, as well as if they're scrapping buses, you'll be able to see those. So a really good tool for those trying to get more data around, you know, approved or projects that are actually happening in New York State through the NYSBIP program. The other tool I'll show, and again, this will also be in the additional resources on our website. But for those who are not familiar, EPRI, the Electric Power Research Institution, they have a vetted charger list that's available. And we have recently added the NYSBIP program to this vetted product list. So if you click on the vetted product list, it will download an Excel sheet. When you open the Excel sheet, you'll see all the different chargers. Sorry, I don't know if this is showing. So can you verify if you can see the Excel sheet, or maybe not?
Oh, currently on, looks like the EPRI product list is still up.
Okay, let me reshare now with the vetted product lists. Okay.
Okay, now I can see it.
Okay, so this is what that Excel sheet looks like when you pull it up. You're going to see a full list of chargers when you first open it. But then if you see on the bottom here, we have NYSERDA right here. And when you click on that, it will give you a list of chargers that meet the requirements of NYSBIP. This is not an exhaustive list of all the chargers that meet the requirements. However, it's a very good resource and has a ton of chargers on there. But the way that this EPRI list works is that charging companies go to EPRI to have their chargers added onto their list. So again, obviously, there's lots of charging companies who have already come in. So this list will continue to update over time with more charger providers. But if you click on this NYSERDA page, you can see here all these chargers that are on here meet the requirements of NYSBIP and can be used for your project. So again, this is a great tool if you're trying to figure out which chargers to use for your buses. This is a good place to start. All right. So we talked about the calculator, we talked about Open New York, and we talked about the EPRI list. So those are three brand new tools that are available today to help those who want to apply to NYSBIP or learn more about how the program works. These tools should help you, and again, will be available on our website, on the NYSBIP website, in the additional resources section at the bottom of the page. All right, I don't see any other questions that came in. So Sophie and I will stay on for a couple more minutes in case anyone else has some questions that pop into their mind. Otherwise, we really thank you for joining. This webinar is recorded and will be posted online in the coming weeks, so people can review it. But these three tools are available online today. The links on our website will be posted later today. So thank you all for joining, and hoping to see you all for the next one. Thank you all so much, and stay warm out there. All right, I think we can go ahead and end the webinar. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, NYSERDA events team. Appreciate you.
Thanks all.
Take care.